I, 27-year-old female, just married Jerry, 37-year-old male, a week ago. We got engaged in October of 2023 and started planning the wedding. Pretty quickly, we realized that we didn't want a big wedding and opted for an elopement. Just 4 people total, 2 witnesses, and us. I chose my brother, 36-year-old male, to be my man of honor, and Jerry chose his best friend to be his best man. There were some complications with planning because we decided to get married in 6 months, so lots of running around. We took the full week off and decided that instead of a formal honeymoon, we would come home and spend our first few days relaxing with our cats with the rest of our time off. In the beginning, I started having problems with my brother and his willingness to contribute to my planning. Honestly, the only thing I asked him to help me with was my wedding dress stuff, and he always made a big problem about showing up. He never paid attention, always made jokes about my size. I wear a size 4, 28-inch waist, and was more focused on telling everyone about himself. Anyways, around December, I noticed his attitude started to change towards the wedding in general, but still huffed and puffed. We talked to one of our mutual friends, and they said we needed to take it easy on him because he's still single and everyone is moving on without him. Throughout the entire planning, I explicitly told both our parents that they were, unfortunately, not invited. We wanted to keep it small, and understanding that this wedding was a 4-hour flight minimum from our respective parents, we didn't want them to join us or feel obligated to spend that money. We did, however, say that we would be planning a second wedding to celebrate our marriage, and they, of course, would be invited then. Fast forward to a week before our wedding, and the events planner at the venue changed. At first, I was a little worried, but she said everything was in order till she asked me about the additional room under a John Smith. I told her I didn't know about this booking and that they were not part of my group. The catch is John Smith is the name of my dad. I immediately called my mom and asked her if the booking was them. I then reminded them that if they were to show up, it would be a huge slight to Jerry's parents. They are divorced with new partners, and it wouldn't be fair to them. She swore that it wasn't them, and over the next week, I called them every day, begging them to not show up at my wedding. 2 days before the wedding, I called them again, and my dad picked up. I told them again that if it was them, I would be super upset with them. And he said he feels hurt that I would think they would ruin my wedding after I told them they were not to come. At that point, I dropped the topic because I thought he wouldn't have said that if he didn't mean it. We get to the day before, and I made reservations at a local pub close to the lodge for 9 people. Myself, Jerry, my photographer, and her assistant, best man, and his family. When we arrived, my photographer noticed 2 additional seats. I looked at Jerry worried. My brother was already there waiting for us. And right before we ordered drinks, my parents showed up. My heart sank. After telling them they were not to come, they completely disregarded it. As happy as I was to see them, I was so hurt they showed up. I immediately put aside my feelings and tried my best to make do with the new changes. During dinner, my brother explained the whole story. It started in November when he said he would feel better if Mom and Dad were at my wedding. He felt that it was important for them to be involved, and that he wanted to make sure Dad walked me down the aisle instead of him. He felt that given they were almost in their 70s, we couldn't take for granted their good health. I told my photographer that they were make sure to get photos without my parents, so we had something to send to my in-laws. We all agreed that no one was to post my parents were at my wedding on social media, till Jerry and I figured out how to tell his parents. The wedding came and went, and although there were some hiccups, it did turn out fine. Jerry and I talked a few times about my parents' surprise, and he just said, "Well, they're here now, and it's nice to see them." After the wedding, my brother said that he made plans for all of us to drive all over BC to show my parents different spots, starting the day after our wedding. After yet another early morning, we packed to make checkout at 11 a.m., and the first drive was to a ski resort that had a fancy restaurant atop a mountain for lunch. That was 1 hour and 45 minutes drive. Then from there, we drove 2 hours and 30 minutes to another resort for a single night stay. The next day, another early morning, we drove to a hot springs about a 40-minute drive. After a couple hours, we drove back home, so another 3 hours. The next day, my new husband had plans that he took my brother and dad to, and I took my mom to do a quick job and met back up for dinner that evening. Then came Sunday. When I woke up, I knew I was upset, but I didn't know why. Jerry immediately asked if I was okay, and I kinda shrugged. We had to meet my brother and parents around 11 a.m. to go to a trade show, and I just felt tired. Again, I pushed aside my feelings and continued on. After the show, we decided to go out for lunch, and that's when it clicked for me. I had been married for 4 days, and not one of them were spent with my husband, and tomorrow we were going back to work. I tried suggesting a pub that was close by, and my brother started a fight with me, saying that we could walk to another pub that was over 30 minutes, by foot, away. Then the argument started. I tried to walk away, but my parents said not to. But my brother wouldn't back down. I finally said to Jerry I wanted to go home, and we started to walk away. My dad called me and said he would meet us at the original pub suggested, and so we turned around. When we got there, my brother started up again, saying that this pub wasn't even that good, and that we shouldn't have come here. I know I should have stayed quiet, but I said that maybe he should leave, and he did. After he left, my dad asked me what I wanted to eat, but I truly wasn't hungry because I was boiling with anger, so I told him I wasn't hungry. He threw his hands up and said, "I didn't fly out here for this," and told us we were leaving. I offered to drive them back to my brother's. They said no, and we all walked away from each other. Later, I got a text message saying that I ruined everything from my brother. Jerry and I spent the remainder of our Sunday trying to relax, but we were both very tired and very upset, so it didn't go over well. The next day when I started work, I felt like I couldn't get out of bed, and then I had therapy halfway through the day. There, I was able to talk about everything that happened, and finally I cried about how our wedding was hijacked and our honeymoon was spent with my family, who completely disregarded that it was our honeymoon. I bawled my eyes out when I realized that we would either have to lie to my in-laws or tell them what happened. I understand that everyone will say it's not like we invited them. We didn't know, but understand that if they thought there was a chance or were given the opportunity to surprise their son at his wedding, they would have. And knowing my mother-in-law, she's going to be brokenhearted when she finds out. Second to all of that, I finally realized that my parents are the monster-in-laws and that unalives me. I called Jerry and I cried to him how horrible I felt, and that we will never get back our wedding and never the time off back. It breaks my heart that our first week spent as newlyweds has been prioritizing my parents. I tried to get back to work, but I kept crying. When Jerry got home, I cried again when we talked about it. He completely agreed, and that he felt that there were so many emotions that we didn't have an opportunity to digest what happened. Today, I got a call from my mother wondering why we haven't responded to any messages and why we've canceled dinner plans. I couldn't keep myself together and I blew up. Between the tears, I tried to explain why we were so upset with them, and that I felt betrayed that they would disregard the very clear line, and how they would feel if Jerry's parents did this instead. I told her that I understood they thought it was a nice gesture, but it ruined our wedding, and that they didn't fly out for me because if they did it for me, they would have respected my wishes. They did this because of how they felt, and how my brother felt. My brother yelled from the background that, how dare I not take additional time off to spend with my parents, and that they didn't spend all this money to fly out here for this. Her response was that they had every right to be at my wedding, and that this is how I felt and I can keep my boundaries, and she's done with me. I called Jerry crying that how could they not see what they did to us. He said that he would call them and see if he could make them see reason. I feel defeated. I didn't want to come across as an ungrateful daughter, but they really hurt me, and I know my emotions are really high, so blowing up was probably not the best choice. I get that they did this from a place of love and didn't think about the repercussions that would affect my new family. I just wish they would have respected our wishes. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Girl, you have a family of jerks. Go no contact and prioritize yourself. They completely hijacked your wedding. What family would want to hang out with their newlywed daughter on what is technically their honeymoon? That's super weird behavior. Also, your brother can get fricked. Who cares what he wants or how he feels? Especially on a day that was supposed to be about you and your new husband. When you do a vow renewal, surround yourself with the people who love you both instead of people who obviously don't respect you. Comment 2. Everyone sucks here except for Jerry. Your brother sabotaged your wedding. Your parents completely disregarded your wishes and repeatedly lied to you. And you let your toxic family stomp all over your wedding, which ruined it for you and your husband and insulted his parents. You should have walked out the moment your parents appeared. You need to learn boundaries. You need to go very low contact, or even no contact with all 3 of your family members. And you need to apologize massively to your husband and his parents. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around for this update. So, the drama didn't stop after my last entry. Things escalated when Jerry decided to confront my parents himself. He's always been the calm one, but even he was pushed to his limit. He called them, and I could hear his voice rising from the other room. He was trying to make them understand how their actions had affected us, but it was like talking to a brick wall. They just kept saying they did nothing wrong. A couple of days later, we received a letter from my parents. I thought it might be an apology, but no, it was worse. They were cutting us off financially. See, they had been helping us with our mortgage as a wedding gift, but now they were pulling out. It was a low blow, especially since we were still reeling from the wedding fiasco. But here's where things took a turn. Jerry's parents, who we were dreading telling about the wedding, already knew. Turns out my brother, in a misguided attempt to fix things, had told them. And guess what? They were more understanding than I could have ever imagined. They were upset, sure, but they got it. They even offered to help us with the mortgage to ease the burden my parents had dumped on us. Feeling a bit more secure, Jerry and I decided to host a small dinner for Jerry's parents to smooth things over. It was going well until my brother showed up unannounced. He had the nerve to come to our house and demand that we forgive our parents. He said we were overreacting, and that family is family, no matter what. I lost it. I told him that what he and my parents did was selfish, and that they had no respect for our wishes. I told him he had no right to interfere in our marriage or our finances. He tried to argue back, but Jerry stepped in and told him to leave. It was a mess, but it felt good to finally stand up for ourselves. The aftermath was quiet, at least for a little while. My parents didn't reach out, and my brother kept his distance. Jerry and I were left to pick up the pieces of our strained relationships. We focused on each other, trying to rebuild the intimacy that had been overshadowed by all the family drama. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. Just when we thought we could breathe again, my job announced layoffs, and I was one of them. The stress of unemployment on top of everything else was almost too much. Jerry was supportive, as always, but I could tell he was worried about our financial situation. Then, out of the blue, my parents called. I was hesitant to answer, but I did. They were apologizing, finally. They said they had time to reflect and realized they were wrong. They wanted to make amends, starting with reinstating their help with the mortgage. I was skeptical, but Jerry encouraged me to give them a chance. We're taking it one day at a time now. My relationship with my parents is slowly mending, and my brother is making an effort to be more supportive. Jerry and I are stronger than ever, having weathered this storm together. It's not perfect, but we're working on it, and that's all we can ask for. Thanks for reading. My stepdaughter demands I ditch my Harry Potter bookcase over J.K. Rowling, so I pack up and show her who's boss by moving out and letting her learn the hard way. I'm having a bit of family drama and need a reality check about if I am being unreasonable here. I really need the perspective of queer plus sensitive individuals because the drama surrounds transphobia perpetrated by J.K. Rowling. My stepdaughter is going through a pretty tough time. The last couple of years have been really rough on her. She has been dealing with bullying at school, being held back a year, not getting along with her mom's new husband, self-harm, and identity issues. Lots of questioning of her sexuality and gender. We have been working on getting her a good mental health team of doctors and therapists to help her navigate all of this. Please know we aren't throwing her to the wolves or the internet to deal with it all herself. I've been in her life since she was 7. We've always had a pretty good, though not terribly close, relationship. I have not taken on a parental role, but have always tried to make myself available for her. Until last year, her mom had primary custody, and her dad had weekends with alternating holidays. Last year, due to the issues with her school and mom's house, my stepdaughter requested that custody arrangements be changed. Since she came to live with my husband and me full-time, there has been quite a bit of friction between the two of us. One of the biggest points of contention is my Harry Potter fandom, particularly the bookcase, and my supposed transphobia, due to my apparently wrong stance when it comes to the politics regarding trans issues in our country. I grew up in the heyday. So many of my childhood and teen memories are tied to the franchise. My friends and I were all really into it. We attended midnight book releases, dressed up in costume for movie releases, threw HP-themed parties when we wanted to hang out, etc. In many ways, it shaped the course of my entire life. Those same friends and I joined our high school's botany club because of herbology. That unlocked a lifelong passion of mine, and my career is working with plants. Over the years, I've collected quite a bit of memorabilia, many of which are gifts, and they have always been displayed on my most prized possession. A monstrously large custom bookcase my grandfather, a former woodworker, built for me when I was a teenager. I love this thing. The shelves are live-edge black walnut slabs. All around the casing, my grandpa carved beautiful HP-themed imagery: owls, cauldrons, shooting stars, lightning bolts, an adorable little rat at the bottom, and nibble marks from said rat, etc. It's both sentimental and valuable. The slabs of walnut for the shelves alone would be pushing $1,000, let alone attempting to value the hand-carved craftsmanship. The bookcase has always been proudly displayed in my home. It currently lives in our living room. During one of our family therapy sessions, my stepdaughter expressed that seeing my HP shelf made her feel really uncomfortable because of the author, and that she was really disappointed in me and her father for being so supportive of a bigot. I apologized for making her feel uncomfortable in her own home and said that I would take down the HP stuff. So I packed up all the HP-themed merch off the shelves, made sure I didn't have the books or anything on display that said Harry Potter anywhere. I bought some LED grow lights and converted the bookcase into a plant shelf to display succulents. I bought some witchy, but not overtly Harry Potter, themed pots for the little guys so they'd go with the shelf. This was not an acceptable compromise for my stepdaughter and has remained a point of contention, with my stepdaughter hurling that we, referring to my husband, broke a promise by saying we would get rid of the Harry Potter stuff. I tried to explain to my stepdaughter that while I do not agree with J.K. Rowling's political stance at all, the media has a special place in my heart because of my childhood association with it, and that the shelf was very important to me because it was a gift from my grandpa. But she maintains that none of that should matter because in 2024, it is nothing but a symbol of transphobia and hate. At first, my husband was supportive of me and my desire to keep my bookcase, but lately the arguments are wearing on him, and he asked me if I would reconsider keeping it in the living room, suggesting we rent a storage unit to house it in. After the most recent blow-up about it, I kinda lost my temper. I didn't yell or anything, but I did very firmly tell my stepdaughter that this is my home and my bookshelf stays. If it is such a big problem for her, she can always go back to live with her mother. I knew it was a low blow pretty much as soon as I said it. I quickly apologized, but it was out there. My stepdaughter has been on an emotional downward spiral. My husband and I have been arguing almost nonstop. I think it is mostly stress because he is at his wit's end with how to help his daughter, but he is becoming pretty mean and nasty towards me, telling me to grow up and just get rid of the freaking bookcase. I know I was a weenie for saying my stepdaughter could always go back to live with her mom, and I suspect that will be the main topic at hand in our next family therapy session. But am I really being unreasonable in wanting to keep my beloved bookcase? Edit. Thank you, everyone. Honestly, thank you for those who shared their insight and advice, and thank you to the people who have asked me hard questions that made me think, especially those who asked what matters more, a bookcase or a my child. I've been reflecting really hard on what my bookcase means to me and why it is so important. I'm hitting some deep truths I don't think I was ready to recognize about how I really feel about my relationship with my stepdaughter. All in all, I think we just need to shelf things until our next therapy session. I'll see myself out. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. There is nothing wrong with liking Harry Potter. You can explain to her that when she is 18, she is welcome to move out and make her own home and put what she wants in that house. I would tell your husband that you compromised with his daughter, but you won't get rid of something your grandfather made you. I'd politely tell him that you are not going to budge further on this, and if needed, separation will happen. I'd also make it clear that if she damages the bookcase, that divorce will be filed for immediately, and you will also call the cops and press charges for destruction of property. Comment 2. Not the idiot, I'm pansexual and I'm a Potterhead. I have a Harry Potter bookcase and a bunch of merchandise. I don't agree with JKR and don't want to give her more money, so I stopped buying more of her stuff, but I'm not going to get rid of the things I already have. Why? Because she already got money from those purchases, and getting rid of them will just mean I lost money. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. So after our last therapy session, things took a turn. My stepdaughter, who's been struggling with her identity, decided to come out as transgender. It was a big moment for her, and you'd think it would bring us closer, but it didn't. Instead, it sparked a whole new level of tension in the house. My husband, who's been trying to be supportive of both of us, started to act strange. He was distant, and I caught him whispering on the phone late at night. I didn't think much of it until I found a receipt for a storage unit. Turns out, he went behind my back and rented a place to move the bookcase without telling me. I felt betrayed. It was like he was choosing our stepdaughter's feelings over mine, over something that meant so much to me. I confronted him and we had a huge fight. He said he was just trying to keep the peace, but I couldn't see it that way. It felt like he was dismissing my feelings, my history. I couldn't believe he'd go to such lengths without even discussing it with me first. In the middle of all this, my stepdaughter's mom called. She heard about the bookcase drama and offered to take our stepdaughter back. She said it might be better for her to be in a less toxic environment. That stung. I never thought of our home as toxic, but maybe she was right. Maybe my stubbornness about the bookcase was making it that way. I had to make a choice. I could dig my heels in and keep the bookcase in the living room, or I could try to mend things with my stepdaughter and husband. I decided to move the bookcase to the storage unit. It hurt, but I thought it was the right thing to do. But then, another news. My stepdaughter didn't want to move back with her mom. She said she wanted to stay, but she wanted me to go. She said she couldn't be in the same house as someone who couldn't let go of the past. My husband didn't defend me. He just stood there, silent. I was shocked. I had given up my bookcase for them, and now they wanted me to leave my own home. I felt like I was being punished for trying to do the right thing. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was losing my family over a piece of furniture, and I didn't even see it coming. I ended up staying with a friend for a few days to clear my head. When I came back, my husband apologized. He said he was just overwhelmed and didn't mean what he said. But things are still off between us. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being manipulated, that my stepdaughter and husband are working together to push me out. I'm trying to be understanding, to be the bigger person. But it's hard. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own home, trying to keep the peace at the expense of my own happiness. I guess the bookcase wasn't the real issue. It was just the tipping point for all the underlying problems we've been ignoring. I'm not sure where we go from here, but I hope we can figure it out. For now, I'm just trying to keep my head above water and not let the resentment consume me. Thanks for reading. It helps to get this off my chest. My husband cheats and knocks up his mistress, but I make him pay by taking half his salary for child support and custody of both kids. So my husband, 29 years old, and I, 23 years old, have a 2-year-old son together. We have been married for almost 5 years. Up until our son was born, we used to live in different countries. After having him, we decided to move in together to provide our son with a future with both of his parents. Our marriage was arranged, so I had no idea what kind of person he was before our marriage. We dated for about 4 months before getting married. We have decided on having at least 3 kids. After moving in with him, I felt like I could be closer to my husband and happier compared to living with his parents, a whole different story. He works 14 hours a day, so initially I thought that was the reason for his neglecting his duties as a parent. He would come home tired and refuse to do anything with me unless it was for intimacy, and he would not play with the baby. Occasionally, he would play with the baby while I made dinner, but if the baby started crying, he would scream my name to come and look after the baby. Then he would take his phone and start avoiding us again. When I tell him to do something around the house, he would say that I'm always whiny and he is tired of hearing me whine. In the 25 months that my son has been here, my husband has not once changed his diaper, and he might have bathed him 6 or 7 times. He does nothing at home except wash his own dishes. When I ask him to help me with chores, he says that I'm lucky he washes his dishes, and he is too tired to do anything else. He thinks looking after a baby and washing one dish is the same. And if something happens to the baby, if he gets a cold or accidentally falls from the bed, it's all my fault for not keeping my eyes on him all the time. Now, 2 years later, I have a remote job, a toddler who loves to climb on everything he sees, and a ton of housework. My husband still refuses to admit that I have a lot of work even when I'm at home. According to him, I'm free 24/7, and I'm constantly lounging around the house with absolutely no worry about paying the bills. It's true I don't pay the bills because I didn't have a job or anything before, and he promised he would provide for us. But the baby wasn't just made by me. We had a huge fight about this last night, and I told him that I'm not going to have any more kids because it already feels like I have 2. He got angry at that and is now refusing to talk to me. I don't know if I'm the a-hole in this situation or not. He says that I was leading him on all this time, and I owe him this. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Ask him why he thinks it's fair he gets to clock out after work and not be expected to do anything once he's off, but you're expected to be on the clock 24/7 when you also work? That you have a full-time job, plus take care of the baby by yourself full-time, plus take on all the household tasks full-time, plus clean up after a grown freaking man full-time. That if he wants more kids, he can have them when he, 1, starts pulling his weight or 2, picks up 3 more full-time jobs. Or you'll be generous because housework doesn't always take all day, so 2 more full-time jobs on top of what he's currently working. Not the jerk. Get on birth control and watch it like a hawk so he can't tamper with it. Make sure he knows if you have an accidental pregnancy that you are not 100% on board with, you will not keep it. Good luck. Comment 2. Not the jerk. In my limited experience, my advice would be, if that's what you want, get on birth control ASAP. Saying you don't want any more kids does nothing if and when you start having intimacy again without protection. Nature is weird like that. It does what it does. My knee-jerk reaction is also to ask if you want to be with this dude long-term, but I don't know your values and morals and cultural background, but definitely look into birth control and don't tell him. And if it's pills, keep them away from him. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for this update. So things went from bad to worse. Remember how I said my husband was neglecting his duties? Well, he took it up a notch. He started coming home later than usual, and I'm not just talking about an hour or 2. I'm talking past midnight. When I asked him about it, he said he was working overtime to provide for us. I wanted to believe him, but something felt off. Then, one day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a woman claiming she was my husband's co-worker. She told me they had been having an affair for months. My world shattered. I confronted him, and after a lot of yelling and denying, he finally admitted it. He said it was because I was always too busy with the kid in the house to pay attention to him. As if that was some kind of excuse, I was furious, hurt, and felt so betrayed. But with a toddler to think about and no family around, I couldn't just pack up and leave. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I told him we could try to work it out, but he had to end things with her and commit to being a better husband and father. He agreed, but I could tell he was just saying what I wanted to hear. Fast forward a few weeks, and I found out I was pregnant again. It must have happened before I knew about the affair. I was a mess of emotions. I didn't know if I could handle another child with everything going on. But my husband was over the moon. He saw it as a sign that we were meant to be together and that things would get better. He started coming home on time, playing with our son more, and even helped around the house. It seemed like he was really trying to make amends. But deep down, I had this nagging feeling that it was all just for show. Then, the other shoe dropped. The woman he had the affair with showed up at our door, pregnant. She said it was his and that she was going to keep the baby. My husband denied it was his, but the timing made sense. I was devastated all over again. How could I have been so naive to think he would change? I felt trapped. I had a toddler, another baby on the way, and now this. I couldn't leave him. I had nowhere to go, and no way to support myself and 2 kids on my own. So I did the only thing I could think of. I told him that if he wanted to make this right, he had to take responsibility for both children. He agreed, but I could see the resentment in his eyes. Now I'm preparing for the arrival of our second child, while my husband is dealing with the fallout of his actions. He's trying to juggle his responsibilities with the other woman and our family. It's a mess, and I'm right in the middle of it. I'm not sure what the future holds, but for now, I'm just trying to get through each day. I'm focusing on my kids and my job, trying to build some sort of stability in this chaos. I know I made a mistake by giving him another chance, but I'm doing my best to make it work for the sake of our family. Thanks for reading this far. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.